In Australia, our society is built around a simple but powerful idea that everyone gets a fair go. But is life in a lucky country actually harder for a woman than it is for a man?
Well, what do you reckon our public broadcaster will conclude about that? You guessed it. For SBS, there can only be one answer. Women are having a terrible time due to the appalling sexism of Australian men. What I just showed you was the start of a promo for a new documentary called Is Australia Sexist? To be shown on December the 4th. The television station promises a wake-up call for Australia. Well, it's hardly a wake-up call, rather than just the usual feminist ideological spin we've come to expect from our public broadcasters. Listen to the rest of this rubbish.
A startling report suggests it is. Australia has tumbled down international rankings and now sits lower than some developing countries for gender equality. So we've commissioned the largest survey ever undertaken on the issue, and its findings are shocking.
Have you ever experienced sexual harassment in public?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
To test the survey data, we'll go undercover using covert cameras in a series of groundbreaking experiments.
Nice long legs.
Excuse me?
We'll analyse equality in earnings.
The reason that he got more than you is because he's a boy.
Did the same work. We need the same lollies.
And lay bare the fear women can face every day.
There's always that underlying threat of rape, really.
We'll see Australians at their worst.
I can't get my hands off her.
And at their best.
You're an ass. She's not in a position to be able to challenge you.
And my own personal journey of discovery will push me to the edge.
It just scares me to think that my own kids will grow up and this will be part of what they have to deal with.
In the first national investigation of its kind, I'm going to reveal the truth behind a question that defines and divides us. Is Australia sexist?
It's exactly what you'd expect to hear from SBS, which invariably promotes the feminist narrative on all these issues. But there's a really intriguing story behind this documentary. Last year, I was approached by an independent Perth-based film company called Joined Up Films, which actually did much of the filmmaking for this documentary. And it seems they did intend to make much more of a balanced program about sexism in Australia. In fact, they pressured me to take part because the survey results from SBS showed quite a different picture from the male-bashing dogma which SBS is now promoting. I was really reluctant to take part because I know from long experience how easy it is to do this sort of really long interview and then have it edited down to something that makes you look totally ludicrous. But Darren Hutchinson, who's one of the producers, worked on me and told me they really needed someone to represent the mainstream view which emerged from their survey. The statistics Hutchinson reported were really revealing. Only 19% of Australians identify as feminist. Almost half the population, that's around 45%, feel feminism has gone too far. And by far the majority, 76%, feel men suffer from sexism too. Now, these views, of course, hardly surprised me, which is why I agreed to take part in the program. And I also recruited Renee Gorman. I mean, she's the feisty former Sydney University student who stood up to the feminist activists who were trying to stop her putting on the documentary film The Red Pill on Sydney's campus. Anyway, Renee and I were reassured by the filmmakers that they needed us in the program to represent that majority review which had come out through their survey results, which shows that most people reject the feminist narrative and acknowledge sexism against men. But the filmmakers warned us that SBS, which was providing the funding, would put their own spin on the end product. Well, that's for sure. When we saw the teaser SBS has just publicly released promoting the show, it was obvious the feminists had taken control of the project. Renee Gorman and I were greatly relieved to discover that our interviews weren't included in this blatant propaganda exercise. The real question is, having been supplied with the survey results showing only a small number of Australians believe in the feminist viewpoint, why would our public broadcaster choose to alienate their audience with this biased presentation? Their survey showed the number of feminists in the older demographic who are more likely to be watching SBS is even lower, 15% for people over 55. SBS's stated values of being fair, clear and transparent are hardly demonstrated by suppressing key results from a commission survey, particularly in relation to sexism against men. Every day I receive emails from men and women across the country who are shocked at the appalling treatment of men in their lives. One major reason feminism is now losing its appeal. Many are stunned to see laws, rules and regulations now so firmly favouring women at the expense of men. And the excesses, of course, of the Me Too campaign is simply one more example of this blatant disregard for fair treatment. But there are many others. There's the refusal of our national suicide prevention organisations to properly research why it is that 6 out of the 8 people who kill themselves in Australia every day are male. They are loath to ask key questions and confront the injustices faced by men and boys in our society. I mean, the rampant false domestic violence allegations, fathers who struggle to see their kids after divorce, paternity fraud, unequal health funding, education pitched to favour girls, the constant demonisation of male sexuality. So it goes on. Of course, the recent push to get universities involved in adjudicating rape cases is another case in point. The risk that poses to male students is the reason I'm conducting my current campus tour. How scandalous that universities risk the reputation of their campuses as safe places for young women in order to kowtow to this small group of activists promoting the fake rape crisis in order to bully universities in getting involved in the criminal justice business. The feminist grip on our institutions can't be overstated. The SBS sexism television documentary is further proof that key players in all these organisations are intent on only stirring up trouble between men and women, even in the face of evidence that most people are keen on a ceasefire. I've been writing about all of this for decades now, and I've put together a collection of my writing about men's issues for my new book, #Men2, which is about to be published. I'll put the link below so you can order your copies in time for Christmas. Show the men in your life that I'm rooting for them. It's a far better Christmas present than new ties or a pair of socks.